thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
On today's episode of the Scooby Panel, Nikki and Wendy meet animation artist Ruth Elliott-Hilsdon, animation painter Vernette Griffee, and background painter Tristin Cole as we celebrate these amazingly talented women in animation on International Women's Day.
All our favorite ladies of animation here.
That's right.
That's what we've got. Nikki and I are super excited. We're very excited. Thank you all for coming on with us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
We're celebrating International Women's Day, so we thought it would be perfect to have women in animation. And we've talked to all of you separately. Now we get to talk to you together, and we are super excited. So thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful to be here.
Yes, yes. Looking forward to it.
Yay!
So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your career, and how you got into the field that you were or are currently in? Ruth?
Well, I got into it accidentally because I needed a job really bad, and I was working doing something like making like $6 an hour back in the 70s, and I was like, I didn't like that job, and I thought, oh no, I should be able to do better than that. But not knowing what to do, I was helping a friend move, and she had these paintings, and one of them was, I looked at it as I was carrying it to the truck, and it actually was her brother's painting. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, well, I can draw that good. But then I said, how is your brother anyway, by the way? And that was Philo Barnhart, and it's the painter. And so she said, oh, he's doing great. He's working at Hanna-Barbera, making $350 an hour. And so I thought, wow, because I was making like $120 an hour, or $350 a week he was making. And I was making $120 a week at that point. And so I thought, what? I can draw as good as he can. I should be working at Hanna-Barbera. So I said, what's your brother's phone number? And she gave me his phone number. And so after that, he gave me some phone numbers of people to contact, and I did. And I got into Hanna-Barbera, where they had this class during the summertime in between seasons, because they always had like 6 months on and 6 months off. You probably remember that, Vernette, right? And
Oh, yeah.
And during the off seasons, they gave this class, and it was the last year they ever gave the class. So I felt really, like I didn't realize it was going to be the last one. But anyway, I did the class, and then by the end of the time, I was good enough that they said, oh yeah, well, you know what you're doing now. And in this particular, it was assistant animation. And so I started working on Scooby-Doo, and they didn't have a job right away. So they put me in the model department, and I ended up doing cleanup on models and working with Sandra Young, who is a beautiful lady, and also a bunch of other folks like Mike Takamoto, Iwo Takamoto's son, and some other folks, Bob Singer, who was just wonderful. And I loved it. And that was the start. And then one thing led to another. And after that, then I started studio hopping in between seasons and finding other work. So it's great.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome.
So how did you do it? What happened with you, Tristin? How did you get started?
Oh, well, my dad was a background painter at Hanna-Barbera when I was growing up. So I grew up like
What was his name?
Ronald Rush. Ron Rush. Yeah, he started in like 1980 and he was there till the end. But yeah, so I grew up watching him paint, and I used to draw and paint a lot just growing up. And I signed up for college. In my first year of college, I decided to study marine biology and coastal oceanography and ecology of gray whales. And my dad was like, just take an art class, please take an art class.
Because he had connections. He could get
Yeah. Yeah. And he saw that I had some, artistic ability. And I did this big mural. It was like a 25-foot by 12-foot mural of a California gray whale and sea lions and Garibaldi. And after that, he was like, you got to take an art class. So I started taking some art classes, and everything kind of started clicking together. And then they didn't really offer background painting at any of the, schools that I was going to. So I started taking classes at the union from industry professionals. And then around when I was 20 years old, a job opened up as a production assistant, a producer's assistant. And so I got in on the back end of it, like the production side of it. And I would sit at my desk, and if it was quiet, I'd work on my background paintings. I'd have my little paints and my brushes, and that was always my goal. And then eventually a job opened up as a prop designer. So I was able to just transition to like design and prop design and character cleanup. And then a couple of years later, like in 97, that's when I started background painting. Yeah, so it just kind of got to move around. And then finally, when I got into background painting, like that's all what I always wanted to do. So I started on static shock background painting, and then some Scooby videos started coming up, and then I worked on a few Scooby videos and Scooby projects.
And what is static shock?
Static shock was it was actually one of the first. It was based on an African-American comic book hero. He was he was like a superhero based on comics. It was Scott Gerald produced it, and it was the first time that we did digital background paintings. So it was like a huge transition from paint to digital at that time. And it was interesting being in the studio at that time. Like, they used to have the best supply closets with all these art supplies, right? And you could just order like brushes and pens and pencils and everything you needed. And then the supply closet started getting smaller and smaller. It was just office supplies, and you couldn't get paints and brushes anymore. That was, I always kind of hoped that they would keep one foot in like the traditional side, and but the studio that I was at, Warner Brothers at the time, decided to go ahead and just completely go digital, because it was a process with the overseas studios as well, getting them on board with that, and that was like a huge change for them too. So
Yeah.
Wow, that was interesting.
And Vernette, how did you get into your profession, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I started right out of high school. 2 days after I graduated high school, I walked into Hanna-Barbera. But anyway, my dad worked at MGM at one point, and his boss was Roberta Gruder's husband. Roberta worked with Bill and Joe at MGM. They did the Tom and Jerry and those cartoons, and then decided to go off on their own. Roberta was head of ink and paint at the time, and my dad. I was an art major in high school, and I went to a Catholic all-girls school, so all my classes were very small, and my art class was very limited, for one thing. So I always during the summer I would take a couple of art classes at a summer school, or my mom would sign me up for, we had a couple of studios that would, were giving classes, and my mom would sign me up. But my dad, I had one like about 3 Scholastic Art Awards. And my dad was always telling Henry, that was Roberta's husband, about it. And he would tell Roberta and this kind of thing. And she would say, oh, we got to bring her into the, we got to bring her into the studio, whatever, this kind of thing. And there were actually, Cal Arts was not in existence. And most of the schools really didn't teach anything about animation. So I was still in school, it was senior year. And when she got off of work, I would go over to her house, and on her kitchen table, she taught me how to ink and how to paint. And I just kind of took to it. I had been taking my art teacher at Notre Dame Academy, taught me calligraphy. And I was really doing well at that. And I got to go on all the competitions, the school with speech and whatever competitions, and I would have to do the certificates, print the names on it. And I just was in tune to that, and it was very easy for me to adapt to the brush because that's how I started with brush inking. That's what they did at the time, and the quill. They're in those early days. And yeah, like 2 days after I graduated, I walked into Hanna-Barbera, and and I was at that time, the studios were, this was like the middle 60s. The studios were made to, the craft unions within the studios had to have 2 apprentices. They would have to hire 2 apprentices in each department, that kind of thing. And that sort. So there was me and a couple of other girls that, were in, so I started off as an inker. No, I started off as a painter. And then, there were other girls a couple of girls that were inkers, and another girl and I were painters. I don't know. Do you know Allison Victory?
I sure do.
Okay. Allison was one of them. She grew up in the Pacific Palisades, and I grew up in Mar Vista, beach kids. So, we had a lot in common. But anyway, that's how I started. And I was just pretty much attuned to it anyway. I kind of adapted really easily to inking and painting, and I loved it. It was just a natural thing for me. And then, from inking and painting, I went on to I was ending up having to clean up all the mistakes. The checkers would bring me mistakes and stuff to clean up and whatever. And then I had to fix stuff for camera and, that kind of thing. And it was just it was just, I learned so much diversity at that point because I was doing so many different things at one time. And then it just kind of went on from there, it just, and I just have to say it was easy for me and I loved it. So, it wasn't really a job. It was just something I loved to do. And I mean, my whole career ended up like that. And I did several, I went into checking, Xerox checking and, that kind of thing, a little bit of animation checking and that sort of thing. But then went back to, when I went to Disney, went back to painting the maquettes and, painting the cells, the collector cells. At that point, they were transitioning to technology at that point. And, but the setups were becoming very lucrative for the studio. And because they were going all over the world, selling them and having these exhibits that, they would present, and collectors would come and spend big money. And for a while, they were doing the maquettes. I was mainly painting for the animators, maquettes for the animators. And then they started selling those and was doing quite well with those. I don't think they do it anymore. I don't know about the setups, if they still do that anymore or not, but Yeah.
That's beautiful.
There is a Scooby-Doo maquette that I've been trying to get, but he's like $700 to $1,000 on eBay, and I
Oh,
just am
really?
not
Oh
spending
my
that much
gosh.
money.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Maybe Dave Nimitz can hook you up with one.
There
Oh
you go.
yeah, exactly.
Dave sent me
Exactly.
a link to some Scooby-Doo sunglasses, and he was like, "You better buy these because they're vintage." So I did.
It's amazing. It's amazing what he's got. It's just,
Yeah.
The collection. You and he and Wendy.
yeah.
I'm trying hard.
He
I'm
has,
trying.
he has this room that, I mean, just the wall, it's wall to wall, you know,
Yeah.
floor to ceiling.
That's
But he also has a storage unit that is just packed with this stuff. It's amazing. It's just amazing, you
incredible.
know?
Wow.
Yeah.
to
Well, it's
hear-
nice to have things that you enjoy,
Yeah.
you know, that you can
Well,
surround yourself with, and there's nothing, you know, there's nothing negative about it. It's, I mean, unless you're broke, which sometimes happens, but
Well,
other than
a lot
that,
of what he has, his mother started collecting for him when he was a little kid,
wow.
you know, that sort of thing. And it's, you know, not
awesome.
just the Hanna-Barbera stuff. He has, Popeye was another one of his, he's got a huge Popeye collection as well. Yes,
Uh-huh.
but it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Vernette, do you collect anything?
Not really. I mean, I have stuff. People give me stuff all the time, you know, that sort of thing. But I don't really collect, you know, other than the Scooby-Doo things. I do, you know, and I collect Disney pins, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't have. Where is it?
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it was taken off when you had to wash it or something.
Probably.
Pins sound very manageable. You don't need too much real estate to collect pins.
Right.
So I think that's a nice thing to collect.
Yeah.
Ruth, do you collect anything?
Musical instruments.
I tell
That's
you.
cool.
I don't collect them. I only have the ones I use. But it's
Is there
so
a banjo back there? I think I see a
yes,
banjo.
a guitar,
Yeah.
and I have a resonator guitar
Oh,
and,
that's awesome.
and a ukulele and a mandolin and
Very
you know,
cool.
but anyway, that's fun. But you know what? It's so funny hearing both of your stories, Tristin and also Vernette, because when I very first wanted to go to Hanna-Barbera, my dream was to go to the background department. And I'm trying to remember the name of the fellow. He had a German accent.
Algamir.
Yes, Algamir. Algamir. When I went there and talked to him, he said, "Well, look," he said, we are full of background painters and we don't need any." He said, "But I know the assistant animation department needs help. So why don't you go and talk to them?" So I did. I went there, and that's when I heard about the class. And so I ended up working in, you know, using pencil and paper with the animation department. And it was just a wonderful experience because I, like you, Vernette, was already super good at doing like handwork, like calligraphy and a steady hand.
Nice steady hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so having to make those precise drawings and doing in-betweens and cleaning up stuff for models and stuff was something that came naturally to me. But that's where I wanted to start out in the backgrounds, but I've always ended up just working in pencil and, you know, stuff like that. But on my own, of course, I have fun doing color and stuff. And I've ended up making my own little cartoons because that was my other goal, was
Making
I
your
wanted
own.
to find out how to make my own cartoons. And in those days when everything was by hand, and I remember going around the studio during break, and I wanted to say, how do I make my own cartoons? What do they need? And so I'd go to every single department and I'd ask them, I'd say, well, what do you do? You know, why do they need you? You know, and so, you know, and then I'd find out all about these things. So with all the machines and things that you needed, like
Camera.
yeah, cameras and all these different types of things, pencil test machines, and it seemed like impossible dream at that point. But now with the computers, you can do it all in your own little
It's
apartment.
incredible.
It really, isn't it? Do you work on any of your own little cartoons, Tristin?
I do have a little animated cartoon. I did a children's book last year, and I animated it. So it's very limited. It's just
Oh, I would love
really
to see it.
simple. Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's on
I'd
YouTube.
love to see it. Yeah, because I did it one too with some other students and Danny Bowman. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she teaches
Sounds familiar.
who are on the spectrum. She teaches kids animation who are on the spectrum.
Oh, wow.
And
Great.
and she ended up going being like the star of like Netflix, that movie Love on the Spectrum.
Oh, neat.
Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I'll look for it.
It's wonderful. It's so beautiful. It used to make my husband cry with joy because
Aw.
we just thought it was so wonderful to see these kids who are all on the spectrum and they're trying to find love and interviewing each other. And, you know, even though like they're sort of awkward or socially awkward, you know, and how they do it. And it was
Yeah.
so sweet. It was a wonderful program. Anyway, so she won an Emmy for, you know, being on that. And
Neat.
now she's in charge of the her own, well, she's in charge of her own company, but she's also the CEO of the nonprofit that I started way back. Me and my husband started back in 2007. And then, you know, for many, many years, I ran it. But then, so now she and her aunt and uncle are taking over the administrative duties. So all I get to do is be the volunteer and have fun with kids.
What's the nonprofit?
It's called EDU Designs, like education EDU,
Yep.
edudesigns.org. And so she teaches kids on the spectrum and any kid who wants to learn animation.
Yeah, I just started teaching recently this last year because it's been so slow in the animation industry, and I'm working with the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity, and so we're doing like Bugs Bunny stuff, Looney Tunes, but we're teaching them you know, character design, and we haven't really gotten into layout and background yet, but it's mostly like, you know, some Procreate animation on the iPad,
Right.
and comic books, how to do comic books.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really rewarding teaching the kids. I really
Yes,
enjoy that. I
really.
really feel.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I want to hear more about that because I heard about it at one point, but I was kind of busy to do anything. But I don't know if they, you know, still need a volunteer once in a while or something.
Oh, yeah, they're always doing stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then
Down here in Orange County.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you live in Orange County?
Yeah, I'm in Huntington. They're based in Newport Beach.
It's closer to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm right now I'm living at the MPTF. Where is it over there? Okay, MPTF. I don't know if you've heard of that.
What is it? The
Motion Picture Television Fund. Campus. It's 20-acre campus.
Oh, I did read about that.
in
Yeah.
Woodland Hills. And the people, if anybody's had 20 years or more of experience in any kind of film industry, even if they work behind the scenes or whatever, but it's in the industry, you know, then they can move in here, and it's amazing. They have like different tiers of people's living arrangements, and you also have to be over 70 years old. So if you're 70 years old and you have 20 years of experience, you can apply. And I know they have some openings, and they're bringing some people in, you know, right now.
There must be so much talent over there. You guys should be making movies.
Oh my God, so many fun people, and they have their own little TV station, and
oh, that's great.
And they provide free Wi-Fi and TV, and if you need and cable, and besides giving you a place to live and 3 meals a day and housekeeping and a gym and a pool, you know, I mean, my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it really
it sounds like a resort.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yes. So you're not old enough yet, Tristin.
20 more years.
Okay. And Vernette, I don't know if you're old enough either.
Yeah,
but
I am.
come and join us.
And yeah, it's in the back of my mind. It'll be there.
You can always get on the waiting list and tell them, sorry, not right
Yeah,
now.
that's what I understand. Yeah, that's what I understand.
That's great.
That's what a great thing to do, because, you know, I feel like not just animation, but the arts in general, even though there's a lot of it out there, I still feel like it's kind of underappreciated, that we don't really fully understand just how important, let's say, the entertainment industry as a whole is. I mean, there's a reason that during COVID, that was still considered an essential service. And I agreed with that 1000%. And, you know, what you guys have done in your life and what you continue to do, you can't even put a price tag on the importance that you've had in people's lives, because you have touched people's lives that you will never meet. They might not know who you are, but I guarantee that what you have done has touched them and has made a positive impact on them. I'm a painter as well. I grew up with Scooby. Anything that you guys do has influenced me to some degree and continues to do it. I see Tristin posting things on Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, I love that so much. Like it never stops. And so I'm so glad that you're being taken care of now, that there's a place where they're appreciating you, because that we need to appreciate you guys more for what you have done and what you continue to do.
That's what you know, she's talking, that little thing on her shirt, that you know, that industry, it takes care of itself. My grandfather was in he passed away in one of the facilities. I think it was the one out in Burbank at the time. But yeah, my dad, my sister, my brother, myself, we have worked in the industry and have that security that, you know, is just incredible how much, or how the industry takes care of its own. You know, it's amazing.
I don't know if it's still like that
I
at the
mean,
studios.
they're incredible facilities. They're just totally incredible. You know, that sort of thing. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful organization. Like during the writers' strike, they had lines and lines of people coming through, and they were giving away free food, diapers, toilet paper, all kinds of supplies for people who couldn't afford it because they were out of work. And they were giving away like $1,500 to anybody who asked it, who was in the industry, who needed help. And I mean, there's so many people who would have been up a creek, so to speak, if it hadn't have been for them. And it's really wonderful. Yeah. And so funny, it's so nice what you said, Wendy, about appreciating all of us.
Yeah, very
sweet.
Yes. You know, when I think about it, it's kind of like what Maya Angelou said was, I think it was her who said that what people will forget what you tell them, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
And I guess because the arts are something that really touches people in their emotions. It's like the difference between it's what adds flavor, so to speak. Like it would be like food without flavor if it didn't have flavor, you know.
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. That's so true. It's very important, and would definitely love to see it encouraged more in the schools. I feel like the arts are the first to sort of take the hit when there's budget cuts or anything like that, because they just refuse to look around and see how important it is, because everyone goes through things in their life, sometimes on a daily basis, and you need some kind of escape that is safe, that is enjoyable, that's positive, that can make you feel better. And that is what the arts do, and what all of you contribute to every day. And I hope that in another 50 years, we're going to know your names, and we're going to still be appreciating all of the work that you've done, because the three of you absolutely belong in the list of inspirational women in the arts and in everything that you do, because the three of you, it's not just a job for you. You love it. you
Mm,
want to be doing
exactly,
it, and
exactly.
that's
The heart,
contagious,
yeah.
that is true.
you know?
It's true.
And it's I know myself at this point in my life, where you can look back and you realize, "Geez, I'm that history. I was in that
Yeah.
history. I was in the making of that," and that you're a part of history. You're a part of well, you know, because I started, my dad, my grandfather started working. My dad, when he got out of the service back in the 40s, you know, that sort of thing. It was, the studio was always our life in our family, pretty much, you know, that sort of thing. And back then, to see what it is now, you know, it's just, you know, it's amazing. And then I feel very honored to be a part of some history of it, you know. And I remember as a kid, always when we would go pick up my dad at the studio and the big gates in front of MGM, you know, this sort of thing. And my mom would park out there and I'd go stand by the gate and wait for my dad to walk down. I just wanted to be in there. You know what I mean? I wanted to be in there.
Isn't that wonderful? And you threw
Yeah.
your heart over the fence and the rest of you followed.
Well, he ended up being, my dad retired from Disney after 40 years. He was head of the staff shop there.
Wow.
And then my
That's-
brother took over when he retired.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you had this great family that could help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's amazing.
Pretty cool.
Well,
Yeah.
it seems to me that in the world of like big business and finance, there's like a separation between like the head and the heart, and the heart isn't important. It's just the head, you know? And so like what Wendy said, it's really the heart that brings the joy and the sense of like, oh, I can relax. I deserve to be here, you know, and I'm a human being. So it gives
Yeah.
us a sense of humanness that that wouldn't,
Exactly.
you know, it's so the heart connects the heart with the head.
I think
And
that's what I loved about Hanna-Barbera cartoons and Scooby-Doo, especially, is the heart in the shows, you know, just always
yeah,
Yeah.
fun.
Well, when I started, it was the, you know, the Flintstones it was pretty much, you know, like going into the second season, and just the phenomenon of it. It was a, you know, a primetime show, and it was, you know, a top show. But, you know, the characters, the different, you know, humanistic characters that they brought into it, the celebrities that they, you know, that sort of thing. It was just, you know, so enjoyable. It was so, and then again, you know, with Yogi Bear and the Jetsons and all these, you know, family type hilarious shows, you know, it was just the creativity. It was just amazing. Just amazing.
true. I mean, where else could you get actually paid for, you know, doing jokes and things like that?
Yeah.
But you know too, the characters, some of those guys, you know, were just characters. They were really crazy guys, but I mean, so talented, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody would hang out in people's little cubby hole there, you know, and it was, you know, a lot of fun. It was really a close connection with everyone.
Yeah. There was one time I remember I was in this one little room that had 4 desks in it. And it was actually just a cubicle because it didn't have a ceiling.
Right.
And,
Right.
One of the layout guys was in the corner, and I peeked over at what he was doing. He was working on a Jellystone Park background, and he was drawing these hills, and you know, so that they could go along the street or the road. And he put up he drew a billboard up there. And I said, "Oh, gee, do they tell you what to do?" He said, "Oh no, it's just sort of like, you know, we know what we can make it look any way we like as long as we follow this, you know, order of where it's going." And so he had written up on the billboard, "Miracle Pictures. If it's good, it's a miracle." And he just like popped it out of his head. I thought, wow, these guys are so creative. It's so much fun.
Yeah, looking at the diversity of creativity all through history is such an interesting thing to do. And there have been a lot of influential female artists who have inspired countless painters for hundreds of years. I know when I was in high school and I discovered Audrey Flack, that was a huge turning point in my life. She is this hyper realist painter. She's still working. I think she's in her late 70s, maybe early 80s now. And I was completely captivated with what she was doing, and I loved it. And it absolutely has inspired the way that I work and what I do. I would love to know, since you're all artists too, who are some of the artists that have inspired you in what you do, either before you got started that made you want to start, or even now that you see doing anything? Ruth, who inspires you?
Well, my mother first inspired me because she was a layout artist, but she was a wonderful artist. She worked for commercials, but she was a very, very good artist. And from the time I was little, I'd watch her draw, and I'd say, "Oh, how does she do that?" And then, you know, she could just whip something out, Santa Claus or anything. And so she first started me. And then, of course, all around our house, she would they were just like little reproductions that she'd probably gotten, I don't know, at a museum or something. But she had pasted them on the wall, all of these things from Degas, Modigliani, Rembrandt, all these different, like Van Gogh. All through the house, there'd be a couple in each room. And so I thought everybody had like pictures of famous art, and then she'd have coffee table books that we could look at all the art, So from the time I was little, and I tried to do that with my kids. I ended up having 7 kids. Wow. I wanted 13, but I had to put on a lucky number. So, but we had a coffee table book of Michelangelo. I figured I should, continue what my mother did, inspiring children. So he went over to it, and this was during the time when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had just come out. And he said, "What's this book?" And I said, "Oh, it's a book all about Michelangelo." And so like he looks through it, he says, "I don't see any Ninja Turtles in there."
That's right.
But at least they, these artists, they called the Ninja Turtles names of famous painters, famous art people. Why? I'm sure it's because they were artists. They knew about these. So I was inspired by all great art from the time I was little.
Yeah. And Tristin, how about you? I mean, obviously your dad, I'm sure inspired you. And also, just to carry over from earlier, I would love to know as well, how did your dad feel when you, after taking that art class, you made it in the industry?
Well, it was really cool because we got to work together, but we didn't commute together. It was like, he needed to be able to go to his lunches, So, but yeah, he was really excited. He worked on a different show than I was. I was on Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and he was on like Freakazoid or some, another production, but we would pass each other in the halls and stuff. And yeah, extremely proud. And so growing up, I looked up to some of the girls that worked in the background painting department when he was there. I got to meet like Vicki Jensen, who was the director of Shrek, and Christy Maltese and Bonnie Callahan. And yeah, I mean, I think I looked up to them, and I even took classes from like Christy. She taught at the Union and taught me how to paint Lion King grass. And Marzette Bonar was one of the painters too. And before that, I would study like Mary Blair, and I really liked Georgia O'Keeffe. Yeah, so I mean, of the female painters, and Degas, the classic impressionists and stuff.
Sure.
That is so wonderful to hear, because I knew Vicki Jensen, and I actually took a class from Bonnie Callahan in how to draw the Smurf backgrounds.
Oh yeah.
And she showed me how to do the airbrush and everything.
I think she painted more Smurf, like, what was it, like over 200 episodes of the Smurfs.
Wow. No wonder she was Yeah, I actually got some classes from her because I wanted to learn how to do that, and I loved what she did. So,
Oh,
great.
Well,
that's
I wore
amazing.
this. I wore this in honor of Bonnie. She always
Oh,
wore tie-dyes and a little beret.
yes,
She's so
That's
oh
great.
colorful.
my gosh, I'll have to tell her the next
Yeah.
time I'm friends with her
Oh,
on
that's
Facebook.
great.
So that's so
That's
wonderful.
wonderful. Yeah. And Vernette, who inspires you?
Well, because I was really pretty young at that point and starting out, and there wasn't a particular painter that I was inspired by. Uh, I was we had the Michelangelo book too, and I think that I was interested in it, but my dad was actually, he worked in the staff shop. He was a craftsman and would make molds on statues and people and things like that. So, and I had was able to go into the studio a couple of times and watch him work and see, you got to come in and see what, you'll really like this, that kind of thing. But I was just a kid, but totally, totally blown away when I was inside the studio and the different things that I saw. But the main inspiration, I guess, was my art teacher in high school, a nun, Sister Saint Anne, and she was great. And I started watercolor, and of course, calligraphy, and I did some etching, and we did silk screen, and all that sort of stuff. But it was going to summer school and learning different things as well. And my mom, I have to say, I think my generation of moms, they were the steadfast women that stayed home and kept the fort while the war was going on. And my mom was, she wasn't pushy or mean or anything like that, but she had, I guess, inspiration for me or something. I don't know. But could tell when I was really young, because I loved to draw even when I was little. And always, there was a ranch behind us, behind our house, and there were horses there. And I just, loved horses. So I was always drawing horses. But there would be, whenever there was an art class during the summer or something like that at the park or whatever. And as I got older, when I was in high school, she had signed me up for a few where I was doing watercolors and some oils, that sort of thing. And then, going right into the studio was another thing, having all these Roberta, for one thing, and, all these inspiration and Jane Barbera and oh my gosh, I can't remember everybody's name, at this point, but all these inspirational women. When there was one Joanne, she was kind of took care of the paint lab, and she was deaf, but she was a character, and she was the most beautiful painter and inker, and she was always giving me pointers and telling me what to do and that sort of thing. And so that was another inspiration. But there were, all these women that in the department that were very inspirational. Really, I looked up to them, and they gave me some respect, and what I was doing and whatever, and trusted me enough to fix the mistakes that they found and that sort of thing. It's at one point. So yeah, those are the women's that those are the women that carried me along. Yeah, that I was inspired by them. I was, I pushed myself, but because of their inspiration, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wonderful.
beautiful, Vernette.
Mentorship.
Yes, mentorship. And what was the name of the girl again? The deaf girl? What was her name again?
Joanne.
Joanne. Okay, because I remember meeting Joanne, and there was that during that time when I was, during every break, I'd go around and ask, "What do you do? What do you do?" I remember I was working in the correction department, which was on the first floor, along with the checkers, and we'd have to fix all the mistakes on paper, the paper and pencil that came through. And so I would always hang out and look at what the people were doing in the ink and paint department too. And I remember Joanne, and she did the most beautiful like brush strokes on things like when there were waves on the sea, you know, she'd put the effects on the top, and she just had beautiful lines and stuff. But what was really funny is that there were a few girls who were deaf there, or weren't there?
Yeah,
Vernette?
she had,
Okay,
she
so
had,
this is
yeah.
this was my experience the first time going to that department. I thought, oh, everybody's so quiet. They work so hard. They are just so quiet. And I go, and then I'd finally go down the hall and turn around, see all the people, and they'd be going and do it. They'd be talking with their hands. They'd be talking about it. I said, oh, they're not making any noise, but they are talking.
Yeah, she taught me a few things that I was able to communicate with, and but she was a character. She would pull pranks on you, you know, and you know, and start laughing and whatever. She was a character. She is a character.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
Really sweet.
Well, Wendy, I was going to ask you if you what inspired you, because you asked us, and you're an artist as well.
I was really, really, really a big fan of Glenn Loates, who is a Canadian wildlife painter. And when I was very little, like my dad always had a very well-stocked library and full of lots of reference books of just everything. And I think he kind of just wanted to see what I would be into. And he was always paying attention to what I liked. And he saw that I had like an aptitude for it. And I remember getting a number of Glenn Loates books when I was little, and that was my dream, as I want to paint like Glenn Loates. I want to do wildlife. And my dad has always been my biggest advocate, pushing me to do what I love, even when I was maybe ready to give up on it. And he's like, no, you keep going, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you can do what you love. And God bless him, he did and continues to do so. I love all of the Renaissance painters and Caravaggio. There was a book that I had when I was little. I still have it. It's an Aesop's Fables book, illustrated by Eric Kincaid. That book is probably the biggest inspiration in my life for the art that I do. And I can look back at it now because it's all animals, but they're realistic, but they're obviously illustrated. They're not hyper realistic. And I look at it now and I think, wow, that's where some of my stylings come from. That book, just because every night, I please, Dad, read me that book, read it over and over and let me look at those pictures. So Eric Kincaid, absolutely. Later on, Scott Gerald's and his Scooby comic covers when he was illustrating for Archie comics, those just, I was crazy for them. I was about 9 or 10 years old at that time. And then in high school, Audrey Flack, discovered her and sort of saw a more polished and fine art style. I hate not calling animation fine art because it is 10,000%. But less of like the cartoon stylings and just more like the hyper realist stuff. And so I feel like my style ended up being kind of a hodgepodge of all of the things that I really, really loved, which is the great thing about art though, is that we don't all have to do it the same. And, you know, it can all be beautiful though. Yes. So I am inspired by, I think, everybody that I've ever met that has done art that I've enjoyed in some way, shape, or form. I think that's fair to say.
And Wendy's an incredible artist. I mean, I've seen her wildlife drawings and they're just so beautiful. And she can draw mean Scooby, Scrappy Scooby. We won't go there. She's just awesome. She's great.
Thank you. Thanks, Nikki.
What inspired you, Nikki, to get into this art and stuff and doing all this archiving and
well, because I used to talk to my family about Scooby-Doo and then I got eye rolls, and so I decided that the best thing to do is to find other people that like Scooby and to talk to them. And in doing that, I've been doing my website for 17 years. And I found some amazing people back then to talk to, and just kind of decided that I'm just gonna make my website, start doing some social media stuff, and maybe have gotten a little carried away, but I love it. It's fun. You know, I've talked to great people. I've met some amazing people. Met amazing people that have worked on Scooby-Doo, like all of you. And I mean, you guys just you bring these characters to life for us, and we get to enjoy them, and it's just amazing. People don't know usually, the people that have worked on the shows, that have worked on the characters, and our goal is to make people know who you are. We want them to know you because you, all three of you, love what you do, and that you can see that in the work that you've done. And just the fact that none of you felt like it was a job, like, that's so cool. I have a 9-to-5 job and it sucks. I can't say that I've ever liked it. but to know that you guys really loved what you did or what you're doing, and it means a lot. It just means a lot. And it makes the characters that you've brought to life so much better. So yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a gift you're giving all of us by
Yeah, you are.
deciding
Exactly. Yeah,
out all this
definitely.
stuff because of your interest. And I'm so glad you didn't
Thank you for being interested.
glad you didn't like squash yourself and stop doing it, because nobody said they liked it. I mean, that would be so hard. It would be like, you know, I guess it's kind of like that story of the ugly duckling where, you know, everybody else thinks he's chopped liver and just, yeah, that's not important. Then he turns out to be the swan, you know. But so you kept going and you didn't give up on what you loved. And that's
Well, the one thing that I've learned is that I have to do things for me and not to please other people. And when I do the things that I enjoy, like, it turns out to be this, you know, like all of us talking to each other, which
Magic
I never in a
happens,
million
yeah.
years thought that we would be sitting here interviewing people that worked on Scooby-Doo, and yet here we are, and this is just incredible. And yeah, it's something that I've always done for me, and if other people enjoy it, that's great. But yeah, I've learned that you have to do things to make yourself happy. And
yes,
yeah,
that's right. I'm glad you learned that.
Exactly.
It's something
Exactly.
most of us take a long time to learn.
yeah. So because we're talking about memorable experiences, and this is definitely a memorable experience for me, and I'm sure for Wendy, like, this is just awesome.
And me too.
What have been the most rewarding, proudest, or most memorable experiences for you as women in the animation industry? Ruth?
Oh my gosh, the most memorable experiences. Well, gosh, I would say how humbling it was to be around all these great artists. And before I started working in animation, I mean, I thought I was a good artist, and that was the only thing I really did well. That's why I was so glad when I found a vehicle that I could actually work in art. But being there that first time when I was like walking around the studios and seeing the other people's desks and the artwork that they were doing, I was so surrounded by this really wonderful bunch of great artists that it really humbled me and made me feel like, wow, I felt like I didn't realize how much more I could grow. Even though in that humbling experience, it lifted me up and it made me a better artist. So, I mean, it's just kind of like what they I don't know, somebody said, if you want to get good at something, hang around people who are better at it than you are, right? You won't get better if you hang around the people who are not as good. so that's what I feel is the best experience, is that I was exposed to so many good artists that just stretched me. And then as soon as it was just like, oh, you know, there's a saying that if you're envious of somebody else's, you know, talent, success, like, why do they have that? Blah, blah. It pushes it away. But if you acknowledge it and praise it, it ends up being part of you, and you can grow too, and you get better. So I was just so happy that I could, you know, be around all these great artists, and it lifted me up, and it made my art better. So I can really say that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And there were so many wonderful little fun experiences along the way. You know, the freedom that I saw that people had, like Floyd Norman. He was down the hall from me in my very first year working with Sandra Young and Bob Singer and Mike Takamoto and a lot of good artists. And down, he had plastered on his wall all these, you know, fun little cartoons that he made fun of everybody around him, all the different people. Oh, there's so-and-so. Oh, there's so-and-so. And then, you know, he'd make some funny little joke about how they drank their coffee or how they did their this or something they said. It's funny. And so, but he didn't know, everybody loved it when he'd do a cartoon of them, you know. So it was very funny. It was just great freedom, creative freedom, you know. It's wonderful.
Great. Tristin, how about for you?
Oh, I can totally relate to that. Definitely the camaraderie of working with other artists in the studio, the fun, you know, just the silliness of making cartoons together and kicking around ideas and, you know, getting inspired. Yeah. And then, you know, just some of the projects that I've worked on, like Emmy award-winning shows, you know, like Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. Those were really exciting to work on. Working on the classics like Scooby and Tom and Jerry with Mr. B and Mr. Hanna down the hall, and Ewo across the hall, and Jerry Eisenberg, you know, and just learning from them, and kind of like they're so humble, yet they, you know, like they're so humble, but they're like this, they're so cool. They're just so funny, and just so funny. They look at everything, the way they see everything is just humor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just definitely humbling and wonderful being around artists from all walks of life, all parts of the world, all, you know, all ages, all very talented. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Vernette, what about for you?
Exactly. It was just because I was so young when I went in. I was just like 18, you know, that sort of thing. And my dad had been in the industry all my life, you know, that sort of thing. And so I grew up in a diverse community, that kind of thing. But it was always a dream for me to be with artists and whatever, and to go in and and be with these people. I just felt so, you know, I felt loved for one thing, and I felt this is where I belong, you know, that kind of thing. And just, you know, so many different people. You know, the artists especially, but the characters, you know, like you said, Jerry and Tony and Ewo and all these people, and, you know, and making fun of each other, you know, they were characters. I was just kind of soaking it all in at one point because I was so young. I was just so awed by all these incredible people. But, you know, and then realizing their talent after a while as well. That, you know, and they were just funny. funny people, and they would poke at each other and that sort of thing. And it was just, you know, these amazing people, amazing women. You know, Roberta, you know, here it was me, 5 feet tall, and Roberta, she was like, it seemed like 6'6". I don't know, but this tall, and the way she would walk down the hall, you know, this kind of thing, it was just like, but she was the coolest lady in the universe, you know, that sort of thing. She was just really great. But, you know, you just felt, oh, she's the boss for sure, you know, that sort of thing. And but all those people were just, I felt blessed. I really did, because I think because I was so young at the point, and mostly everybody was, you know, either in their mid-20s or 30s, you know, that's it, but they were old. And you know, yeah, yeah, and then, you know, when I look back at it, just the privilege of being able to do, and just, you know, I was so lucky, and that, you know, that my dad being tenacious enough to, you know, talk about me to his boss, and then to say, this is what we're gonna do, and blah blah blah. I was like, okay, all right, yeah, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, I just the support I had from my family at that point, that sort of thing too, is another thing. But just the friendships, and, you know, the people that we're still friends on, you know, thank God for Facebook, because I can keep track of a lot of these people, that we still can connect with each other at some point, you know, that sort of thing. It's just, yeah, it's special. It's just, you know,
I mean, it was
in
a lot
here.
of hard work too.
It
wasn't all
was.
fun and
It was,
games. It was
yeah, I
hard work.
remember.
And
I
that
remember those
part of it
12-hour
made it fun
days,
and took the
7 days a week, and, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
yeah, some heavy lifting going on with all the production deadlines.
Well, it's got to be ready for camera in the morning.
The amount of artwork to
Yeah.
generate, and
Yeah.
But, you know,
it
to
was-
watch you, all three of you, talk about your experiences and your careers, like, you all just light up. It's so
Yeah.
cool to see you. Every time it's your turn to talk, you just light up. It's
Oh.
yeah.
Well-
I know Wendy and I are just thrilled to be here with you.
Yeah.
And I know I said this already, but we really are. Like, this
But
just
it's
means
cool
so
to connect
much
with
to us.
you guys too. It's really cool. Really cool. And
Oh,
thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this.
so wonderful.
And to hear you guys, like, you'll mention a name and then somebody else would be like, oh, I remember them, and then tell a little story. It's just perfect. Perfect.
Wow. Well, I don't know how much time you have left to speak, but I was thinking of remembering how wonderful it was when they let me work at home, and once a week I'd bring my work in, and then I'd get another pile and go back home. And sometimes I'd have to bring some of my kids with me. And one day my son would just refused to take off his Superman underoos, which he had just gotten proud of. So I had a little piece of red cloth that was made a perfect cape, and I tied it around his neck, and said, okay, you'll be Superman today. And so we went to Hanna-Barbera with his Superman underoos.
Super friends.
So I stopped to say hello to Mr. Hanna on the way, and Mr. Barbera's office was right there. And all of a sudden, Michael comes right, he ran away from me right into Mr. Barbera's office. I'm going, you know, and so I sort of like chased him down. But so like here was this rows and rows of in this hallway to his office of these like big stuffed yogis and Scoobies and all these and these characters. And so he ran past him into his office, and so before I could get there, Mr. Barbera comes out with Michael in his arms, and he's having a fun time with him. Hey, you want to touch Scooby's nose? You know, and he's introducing him to all the stuffed animals, and he was so sweet. And I was afraid I was going to get in trouble, you know. No, he was very nice. He knew which side the bread was buttered on, and what his future audiences for these.
Yeah.
Right.
That was so much fun. I loved it.
He was just a big kid himself.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to hear how many wonderful families that you guys all had, because I remember reading once in the Reader's Digest, of course, that's, you know, it's a great sense of authority and stuff like that. But anyway, in this one article in the Reader's Digest, it said that 90% of successful people had dads. You know, we all have biological dads, of course, but to have a dad that supports you, oh my gosh, what a great thing that does for a kid to get him a good head start. So you were all very, very lucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So according to the advocacy group Women in Animation, 70% of animation school graduates are women, but only 34% hold industry creative positions. Do you have any idea why that would be, that 70% of women are graduates, but then don't end up going into the animation field? And is it more difficult for women to get jobs in the industry, Ruth?
Oh, well, I would say that it all depends on number one, did they really go into that field in school because they wanted to do it as a career, or it was just that they loved art and maybe they, you know, really just wanted to have a family and raise kids, and who knows, maybe they met somebody who, you know, and then they get married and have kids and then they want to stay home, you know, and maybe that knocks off, I don't know, another 20% of those ladies, and there's maybe 50% left, and then only, what did you say, 30 or 40 something?
Like they're around 34%. Yeah.
Okay, actually join in. But I do think that there is like a ceiling that, you know, the men, you know, when the guys are in their little club and they want to have the power of who gets in or not, their buddies are going to get first pick. Because I mean, I think that I mean, it may have changed over the years to as it is today. It's probably easier for a woman to get in, but in the old days, it was basically, I mean, just like what you know, I think you were the one who pointed out that Walt Disney in the old days didn't want the women to do anything but ink and paint, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They weren't qualified to do these gags and funny things or art and stuff.
Animate.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah, they
but
apparently sent letters. They sent two that I know of that basically said women don't do the creative work in animation and that they're only hired as inkers and painters.
right. And that's of course a sort of a, you know, false thing, but
I think that's changed.
Yeah, I
It's
think
definitely changed over the last
so.
couple decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it probably took until the 80s, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah, I
so.
think, you know,
Late
that
70s.
I know for me, in the middle of the 60s there, when the women's movement started, you know, really giving women more power, you know, or letting them really feel that power, that they could do it. You know, I think, you know, it wasn't easy to get
Because
hired.
there
in
was a
lot of-
stigma there that they had to
Exactly. Yeah.
And perhaps part of it was the men were the people who were of that mind that they should be home taking care of the kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so like you're neglecting your duty if you go out and get a job, you know.
Yeah.
And
And-
that's the reality. Usually the mom has to raise the kids, you know, and it's a juggling act for sure.
Do you have any
Well,
kids?
when
I had
and you
two.
think about it
Yeah.
too, it
Mhm.
wasn't until like the 70s that you know, girls in high school were actually given, they didn't have women's sports, they didn't have girls sports, you know, in high school, that sort of thing. And I think the AYSO brought, you know, opened that up, and I know, with my daughter too, it was, you know, she wanted to, and her friends wanted to play soccer in high school, but you know, they only had boys teams, they only had men's teams, you know. And
Right.
it was a couple of years after, you know, she had already graduated when they started opening up those things for girls, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that was one thing. But yeah, there was that tight masculine grip on a lot of those jobs that you
Yeah,
know, were
mostly women did
really
mostly
hard
the
for
color,
women. Yeah, exactly.
jobs or HR,
Yeah,
production managers,
right.
but a lot
Well,
of the creative work.
I will say too that it was kind of a different thing in ink and paint, you know, especially with inkers. I know some guys that, you know, they were into you know, drafting and things like that. They more into that sort of thing, and were good inkers, you know, that kind of thing. So it started to change a little bit, you know.
Do you have children, Vernette? When you were
I have a daughter. Yeah.
Were you working during the time you were raising her?
Yeah.
And so was that difficult for you?
Actually, no, this is, you know, where my mom comes in again. My mom was right there to, you know, I would drop her off in the morning and pick her up at night. And, you know, my ex-husband had, he had a mechanic shop. He and his dad and his brother had a mechanic shop. They did brakes and things like that. So yeah, I would, in the morning I dropped her off and
Yeah.
picked her up at night.
So at least you had somebody loving her who you
Oh yeah.
really loved her.
Yeah.
That's and then what about you, Tristin? And you, if you have to work?
When I had my daughter, I decided to be a work-at-home mom for about 10 years. I was able to maintain working and raising her, and then my son, they're about 3 years apart. So I went back to work when he was about 6 years old, but we had I had Oma. We had the family, my sister's husband's mom. So
Yeah.
it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have like like an Oma or a mom who doesn't have to work, because
Right.
Yeah.
nowadays all the ladies have grown up,
Yeah.
and a lot of them don't have a mom who doesn't work, and she can't take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
hard. That's really
And the
hard.
cost of daycare is almost the same as the wages you make.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
know. Yes.
Ruth,
Yeah.
how did you manage 7 kids?
It was really hard. I got about 4 to 6 hours of sleep if I was lucky at night, and I was always like, ugh. My unfortunately I didn't have well, I had my mother-in-law, thank God, for a little while in the beginning, and then we got some preschools and stuff like that. But then when I started working at home, it was even harder, because then I had the kids plus the work
Oh
and
yeah.
everything, and it was like just really crazy. And at one point, I know what you mean, Tristin. I was working on this one project that was by the piece. It was during a time when there was hardly any work, and I was just happy to get any work freelance. And they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry that our budget only has a certain amount for each scene that we give you, and if there are any corrections or anything, we can't pay for those anyway." It ended up that he said that you know, so but this is it. This is all we can give you for each thing. And so it ended up I added up how much I was paying the babysitter and how many hours I was working. And I was making as much as the babysitter.
Just enough to cover the babysitter.
Yeah.
I thought, wait a minute, I'm making like this much an hour. She's making that much. I could be making the same amount paying babysitter. But
You're doing your thing.
right. So it was a struggle, up and down and up and down, but it was certainly better than doing anything else that I can imagine. And I loved it. I just felt I was so good at it, and I learned how to do it. And so
I bet your kids loved it too.
well, one of the funny things about that, Tristin and Vernette, maybe you'll understand this too. I was feeling really like kind of guilty because like all the other kids at school, they had fancy lunch pails and like they'd have little ding dongs and Doritos and extra little goodies in their lunch. And I was kind of like a health food nut. And so I would give my kids an apple, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or some kind of a meat sandwich or something.
That was like me.
Right. And so, and then they'd get their milk or something at the place, at the school. And so because I was feeling guilty, I would, every day I'd get a napkin and I'd like draw on it, like have a day or something, and draw Scooby-Doo or a Smurf or something. And
That's great.
Lunch pail, not a lunch pail. We had paper bags. So I'd give them each of those. And so, but after about 2 weeks, I kept thinking, I wonder if they really appreciate that. Maybe it's no fun. I'm doing all this hard work in the morning, making these pictures so that they can, not feel bad that their mom isn't giving them this junk food. And so then I asked the kids, I said, do you really, like those little napkins that I draw on? And they said, yes, don't stop. And so I said, oh, okay. So I kept doing it. And then years later, they told me they were trading them for Doritos and Doritos and all these things that I wasn't giving them.
Brilliant.
They got the treat.
Ruth might remember this. Ruth, do you remember that back before, well, there was film, but Hanna-Barbera used to throw they would throw huge amounts of painted cells and backgrounds and stuff. Do you remember that? They would throw it in the trash. Yeah, in the trash bins.
Big trash bin.
I would go out and I would collect them.
I'm so glad you did, because I was too scared to take anything out of there, and I would never take anything out. And then later I heard they were really valuable, and they were just.
Yeah. Well, what I was doing, I would collect these because they were just, and we would all go out there. We knew what they were doing, but I started mounting a lot of them, because there was backgrounds and everything, and I'd put them together, and I'd frame them. And when my daughter went to a birthday party, she would take these as presents, as gifts. Wow. The kids could, hang in their room or whatever like that. And I did it for my nieces and nephews, and that sort of thing too. And I have a nephew who is, oh gosh, he's probably in his mid to late 50s. And I made him a Flintstone thing, and he was like,
wow,
maybe kindergarten or whatever. And he has carried. He told me a couple of years ago. He said, Aunt Vernette, I have it in my office still, and he says, everywhere I go, I was in my room all these years and whatever. And every time he has a different office, he takes it with him. I went, oh my God.
You know how much that's worth?
How sweet.
And they're worth a lot of money if they ever got appraised,
Exactly.
The Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah. But no, there was, Scooby-Doo walk cycles that, I'm yeah, it was unreal. Because I guess they just said, well, we've got it on film. We don't need these, that kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. I think Nikki and I both just died a little bit inside.
Yeah. All that.
There was this huge big roll-off dumpster that had like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Well,
God.
David was another one. David would go, he he was just a kid. And he lived in the valley there. In Sherman Oaks, I think he lived. And he would ride his bike over there. And I don't know how his mom found out about it. Somebody told his mom. And she would tell him, go over to him. And he would go and dig through the trash. And he's got a bunch of stuff. He still has a bunch of stuff.
I'm so glad he did. He rescued a lot of beautiful artwork.
Yeah.
People slaved away to do it perfectly and everything. And it really is worth something, you know?
Yeah.
It's really sad
that's the
to
thing,
hear that all of that was thrown away.
Yeah, that is, I don't care what anybody says, that is museum and gallery quality artwork. All of that background art is just like rivals anything that you would ever see in a museum. And the fact that it's not appreciated like that, crazy.
Made me feel very
Disney saved all of that stuff. They saved all the animation, all
That
the
was
sound,
smart.
everything.
That was smart.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
That's
well, the
wonderful.
irony of that earlier quote, that the idea of like, well, just paint and ink, that's all you're good for is just paint and ink. Show me a Scooby-Doo that anybody wants to watch where it's just Scooby walking across a white background.
Exactly.
The ink and the paint is what makes the animation. No
Right.
one's going to tell me otherwise.
That's
Right.
right. That's right. Wow. Well, geez, Tristin, how old are your kids now?
18 and 15.
Oh, wow. So they're still.
Yeah. So I got a freshman. My boy's like just starting high school.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's why I don't hear him running around in the background.
No, he's at his friend's house right now.
Oh,
None of you seem old enough to have kids this age. I'm sorry. None of you do. I don't know if it's because you work in animation
keeps
or
you
you just
young.
have great genes or something, but you all are just, you seem much too young. Much too young.
I think Kristin's right. The animation keeps you young. The art keeps you enjoying life. You know? It's wonderful. It's fantastic.
So,
well, look at you guys. You're all beautiful too.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wow. Well, this is
so
wonderful.
we've talked about lots of real world aspirational and inspirational women, but there's a lot of fictional characters that I think are also quite aspirational for girls and women as we get older and stuff. For me, number one, Nancy Drew, till I die. Till I die, I want to be Nancy. I want to embody everything that she represents. I think that she is the quintessential aspirational character. So it's International Women's Day. We want to celebrate the women that make a positive difference in everybody's lives. So does everybody have a fictional female character that they feel is aspirational or that has inspired you in some way, or that you feel is just an inspiration and you'd be happy to have little girls or grown women be like, go and read that book or watch this show or movie? Just a fictional female character that you think is aspirational. Ruth, can you think of one that like means something to you, or that?
Well, gosh, the first one that I can think of that comes to mind is when I read The Good Earth, and I forget the character's name, but it was the lady who, you know, she gets married to some young whippersnapper guy, and they're walking, and of course she's 6 feet behind him, and he's eating a peach, and he just throws the pit over his shoulder, and she quick picks it up and says, "This will be a tree in our home, in our new home." And so, like, the woman who's always thinking of the future, of from the very seed, from the very beginnings of what's really the start of life and anything new, the ones that nurture that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted 7 kids, but or I wanted 13, but I got but so that whole thing of like looking to the future and being patient in the present, so that you can see it through and not just to throw away things when they're in your way, you know. That's the kind of thing that inspired me. But
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Tristin, how about you?
Wonder Woman was always like my hero. the Linda Carter one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. She inspired me. I always thought, whenever I would feel like I couldn't do something, if there's too many challenges or something, I would think of Wonder Woman, and I'm a Wonder Woman too. I could do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
And
kind
Vernette,
of a female Shaggy, so there's no like female Shaggy character.
Oh.
there's definitely room in the world for a female
Right?
Shaggy, though. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
10,000%.
so.
No argument here. Vernette, any fictional female character that speaks to you?
I think when I was much younger, because I was into comic books. I had two older boy cousins who I got their hand-me-down comic books, that sort, which I loved. My aunt wanted to get rid of them, so they ended up, and it was Nancy and little Lulu. I, kind of gravitated towards that. And then, when I grew up and I had my daughter and whatever, and the Star Wars series came out, that was, I remember when the movie came out, my husband and I both worked, that sort of thing. And so on Saturdays, she decided what we were going to do. We allowed her, whatever you want to do today, this is what we're going to do. Saturday or Sunday, whatever. And when Star Wars came out and we went to go see it in Westwood, and all three of us were kind of mesmerized by it. Every week from, I think for a couple of months, we had to go see Star Wars because that's what she wanted to do. But I think about it too, and I think Princess Leia has been an inspiration to me since then. And there she was in this all these men, basically there were warriors that, and she had the force. She had a force, that sort of thing, and figured it out. And she had her place, and she she knew what she was doing. She had the guts to do it, to try things, whatever, and just do it. And she was respected and loved, and and she was vulnerable, that sort of thing. But she persevered and she fought.
And it was okay to be a woman.
Yeah,
Strong
exactly.
woman.
A strong
And
woman.
feminine.
And
Feminine too. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. I was just going to say that she's a very good example of how you can be feminine and strong at the same time. I feel like sometimes people think that, oh, it's got to be one or the other. No, it doesn't. No,
Right.
no, you can be the total package. There's lots of total packages going
Right.
around. Definitely.
Yeah.
You thinking about that? What about you? Because you asked us.
Yeah.
Who's your character that inspired you?
Well, definitely Nancy Drew first, but also I, especially as a little kid, June Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver. She was like what the kids today would like hashtag goals. That was June Cleaver for me. And it still is. I still will like vacuum my house with like pearls or something, or like a fancy brooch. Absolutely. If I have to do the work, why shouldn't I look decent doing it? Because June, that's what June would do.
Oh,
If someone came to the door, I mean, because when I was a kid, my dad's always been very welcoming to anyone, and we'll just meet some random person and he'll be like, oh, well, this is where we live, and if you ever want to stop in for a cup of tea, you don't even have to call, just show up. And my mom wasn't crazy about that. I'm not crazy about that either, but it taught me that, sometimes it's good to always assume that someone just might randomly show up at your house. So it drives me to keep my house a certain level of clean and tidy, and to do the same for myself. I have a hard time not getting dressed up when I literally have nothing to do except clean the house. Because I'm like, well, somebody might come over and I would like to look nice. Because June inspired me to be that. I don't know. And both of my grandmothers were like that too, where I never saw them, even if my sweet Russian thickest accent you can imagine, my Russian grandma going outside to kill dandelions on her lawn, you know, and she's just in a plaid shirt and some slacks, but it's a tailored plaid shirt, fitted slacks and nice shoes, you know, and her hair's like permed or she's got it it's like just so. And so I grew up around two grandmas that were always very put together, no matter what they were doing. And that definitely, they inspire me every single day. I think about them all the time. Miss Kitty on Gunsmoke.
Ooh.
You want that like kind of hard edge where it's like, yeah, you don't mess with Miss Kitty because she's packing some heat under her skirt. She is. You got to be careful with her. And I mean, Dana Scully, I was big in X-Files and I did not like her because I had a thing for David Duchovny really bad when I was watching X-Files when I was young. So I didn't like Scully, but now looking back on it, I appreciate that character because she was kind of amazing. She was skeptical, but she tried to be open to what Mulder was saying, and I feel like she didn't try to put him down for what he believed, you know, even if she thought he was insane. She found like a polite way of conveying that to him.
Kind of like Daphne is. With
Absolutely.
Fred, and
absolutely
solving mysteries and not being afraid.
So true. So true. Yes, definitely. Yeah. And speaking of Daphne and Velma, because that is the thing that ties all of us together, I for sure think that those are two very aspirational female characters. They always remind me a little bit when I was younger and big into Archie comics. There was one comic in particular where Betty and Veronica, they're kind of hyping each other up and just talking about all of their positive points, the good points about each of them. And they come to the conclusion like, oh, we're the perfect girl, but we've got one body too many, which I just thought was just like kind of like a delightful, it was just so much fun, you know?
That was fun.
And it's like, I kind of feel like Daphne and Velma could maybe be looked at like that. Like they're the perfect girl. There's just they got two bodies. They should be the same person. But no question, even separately, they are both amazing women. I love the character of them, especially in early Scooby when we're first getting started. Would you guys all agree that they are, even today, looking back on specifically like the 69-70 version of Daphne and Velma, would you agree that they are still aspirational characters to women today, that their qualities and their character is still something that we could absolutely learn from, and that the world would maybe be a better place if there were more Daphnes and Velmas going around in it? What do you think, Ruth?
Think so.
Or Tristin, whoever wants to start, please feel free.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I mean, Velma, you know, she's almost kind of like solves the mysteries. She's, you know, and she's just so smart, and then, you know, Daphne's kind of a sweet talker, you know, she's charming, she's resourceful, you know, but she's also, you know, she's not afraid of, you know, getting in, you know, meeting a ghost or something like that.
Right.
True. I feel the same way. It's that Tristan is what they're showing that these women are not afraid to speak their mind, and they don't check their brains at the door, you know, and they're outspoken, and they're using their brains.
Yeah.
They're not afraid. They're not being held back by some kind of like, oh, I'd better be quiet because that's what they expect of me or something, you know.
And they don't care what people think. They are themselves, very much themselves, unique in their own ways.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I didn't get a chance to hear what Nikki was inspired by when you were younger, you know.
I mean, definitely Daphne and Velma, because, you know, they were like strong, capable, they could do things for themselves. They didn't like rely on the guys, you know. But I always felt Angela Lansbury was just, because she was also like very smart, very capable. You know, she just, I just thought she was great. You know, I would have loved to have been like her.
Whatever you praise becomes yours. You are enough like
How do you feel about Daphne and Velma, Vernette?
Yeah, just that the independence, you know, of either both of them, you know, for one, but working together and respecting, liking each other, and respecting each other, and you know, sharing back and forth, and you know, they were both two different personalities for sure, you know, that you know, it was kind of refreshing, you know, that sort of thing. And I think with me too, because I had gone here for 4 years of high school with just women, you know, that sort of thing, which was you don't realize it till you're out of it, the strength that you got. You're not competing with men, you know, you're forming yourself, you're developing your personality, your ideas, you know, you don't have to compromise. Uh, well, you know, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
you know, you're not. I think the better part of not having to compete, you know, with grades or you know, or capabilities, or you know, whatever you try to do, you're not. You know, it's because it seems like just even now in high school and college, whatever, it's you know, the basketball team, it's the boys teams, you know, that take center stage, you know, that are the predominant ones that you know are supported and whatever, which is sad, you know, that sort of thing. But it's getting better. It's getting better. Women's sports, you know, I'm thinking that are finally starting to come up to the level that men are, and that sort of thing. And I think I just in high school, and then I was able to keep that strength, that independence within me. And you don't realize it when you're in it, and then when you know, if this few years that I've been out of it. But you know, when you're in it, you're not paying too much attention until you're out of it, and you realize that you know, yeah, I did it, you know, that sort of thing, and with very little compromise, you know, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully, you know what, one of the things I really loved about Scooby-Doo is that the kids, I knew I could let my kids watch it, because the kids never were rude to each other.
Yeah.
Each one of them, I mean, I never heard them say, you know, mean things or call them names to each other. And I thought, wow, now that is really refreshing. It's really nice, because you know, so many and then later on, of course, there were a lot of really rude cartoons and things that really were for adults, like South Park and stuff, that I wouldn't let my kids watch, even though as an adult I probably would have enjoyed it. But I always tried to keep my mind like, how would this feel to a 4-year-old?
Right.
And so I kept my 4-year-old consciousness intact all these years. So you know, so that would offend me when I'd watch things like that, and I couldn't really enjoy them. And now I can, but still, I don't. I hope that, you know, I would hope that. Oh,
You still don't want your kids to watch them.
yes. In fact, one funny thing that happened when my daughter had just turned 18, and my other daughter was there too, and we went to a party that used to be every year, that the Croyers, from the people that produced and created Fern Gully, and they have this party every year, and all the famous people in the industry would come, and Brad Bird, you know, who did The Incredibles, everything, he was always there. He'd fly down from San Francisco to be at these parties, and they don't have them anymore because the Croyers ended up moving. But when they were here, it was wonderful to see him every year. And I, you know, I knew him over at Warner Brothers. Well, anyway, so he was one of the people that invented Krusty the Clown for The Simpsons and had done a lot for the early Simpsons. So my daughter, you know, when she goes over to him, she says, "Are you Brad Bird?" And and he said, "Yes." And so then she said, "Well, I just want to let you know that my mother would never let me watch The Simpsons." And so he said, "Well, it's not a kid's show, it's an adult show." And I said, "Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much." I was so happy, you know, because he was a dad too. But now, you know, I mean, like, but nowadays the only thing I didn't like that they would say was that Bart would say the word butthead, you know. And so my kids starting to say that to each other, you know. And so, you know, but nowadays, I mean, The Simpsons is tame. And I wouldn't even they watch The Simpsons because there's so much crudeness and rudeness everywhere that it's like it just goes right over their head or something.
Too much like real life.
Yeah. Real life. And I've had to I've gotten calluses in my ears over the years so that it doesn't bother me. But that was hard at first.
Yeah. No, they did seem to take really great care, not just with Scooby, but all of the cartoons that were coming out of Hanna-Barbera, especially all through the years, you know, keeping in mind that children, I mean, it's fine for adults to enjoy it, and we do, but it's for the kids, and it needs to stay that way. It needs to be something that you, like Ruth, like you said, I know that my kids can go watch it, and I don't have to police it. I don't have to worry about it. It's just, it's okay. Yeah, and that's not really a thing anymore, unfortunately. One of the things that I also really appreciated about Daphne and Velma in particular was that they didn't pit them against each other either.
Right.
You know,
There's no cattiness.
They weren't like saying, "Well, you can't have Fred because you can have, you know, Shaggy or something," you know, whatever.
Yeah, the dynamic with all of the characters on Scooby, and I feel like even all of the supporting characters too, not just the gang, but like there's a lot of female characters in Scooby, friends of the gang that they go to see and things like that, and they were always treated with respect. And I always really noticed that and appreciated it. I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on this. I feel like that was very much a thing at the time where they really, to me, they didn't really put a lot of emphasis on who was what gender. If it was Fred and Shaggy or if it was Velma and Daphne, it didn't matter. It was a bunch of friends. They were out helping people, solving a mystery, having some fun, and everyone did what they were capable of doing. And that was it. You know, nobody was shamed if they couldn't do the job. Whoever could do the job did it, and the other ones all pitched in and helped. And I kind of feel like today, I don't know if it's pushback against a lot of the stereotypes against women from previous times that they're maybe overcompensating now. But I feel like a lot of times today in entertainment and even in animation that they're trying really hard to not just let it be an organic thing where everyone just does what they're good at. It's like they're kind of, when I watch it, I'm like, boy, like they're pushing them away from the stereotype of like what the typical female character would be, like a Daphne or a Velma, where I don't know that I would call them assertive, but they didn't need to be because Fred and Shaggy weren't being assertive either. Everyone was just together and doing the things together. Whereas today, I feel like a lot of that is forced on the characters. And I don't know, do you guys feel like, is it really necessary at this point in time to be like pushing the female characters away from the traditional roles in an effort to build them up, I guess, I guess that's what they're doing. I don't know. Do you know where I'm coming from with this? Because I'm just curious if you have thoughts on this.
Well,
yes. Yeah, it seems like they that I don't want to say adult or whatever, but I'm going to say the maturity of it. You know, they were, you know, there wasn't really, you didn't really realize that, oh, Daphne's 21 and, you know, Velma is 22 or Velma is 19. You know, you didn't think of that, but the intelligence of their vocabulary, how they spoke, how they treated each other, you know, was so normal,
Yes.
you know, and the diversity that kids are, they're not hit with it. They kind of don't even know, you know, they accept everyone for who they are and what they are, you know, what color they are, or whatever, what gender they are. It's the adults that have to screw it up, you know,
So true.
that are, you know, yeah, the kids know, they're intelligent enough to know that you don't have to push it on them. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And it seems like that there so much emphasis is put on that now that doesn't need to be. You know, I think, and like you were saying, the better part of what the Scooby-Doo's, that generation, I think that was you know, that was a base that, you know, why can't you follow that?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing is because it was all encompassing with, you know, as far as respect and maturity. You know, I'm not saying it was too adult or it was too mature or immature or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. And you know, some of these characters that I've seen, I was kind of, oh my God, when my nephew was small, you know, I just, what in hell? You know, there was just these stupid vocabulary, stupid characters, this kind of thing that weren't even fun. I mean, they weren't enjoyable. And I don't think kids.
It becomes a
enjoy
drama
it.
instead of a comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
Exactly. That's very
Yeah.
insightful, Tristin. Yes, and I agree with you.
I mean, even working in the animation studio, we were a diverse group and it never really
Exactly.
was an issue.
Exactly. Exactly.
We just got the work
Exactly.
done. We worked together,
Yeah.
solve problems
Yeah.
and get it done.
And yeah, you know, I enjoyed that diversity. I enjoyed the difference that we all had, you know, and everybody didn't take everybody seriously.
Oh.
You know,
When you
We
start
all knew
kind
we
of
were all weird.
exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
that's a good way to put it.
What were you going to say before I interrupted you, Tristin?
Oh, I just think that it divides people more when you group them. you know.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Too. And then what's amazing about today's kind of like emphasis on we have to push the agenda of, well, we're not going to be prejudiced against anything, so we'll make, you know, the black lady is the president and the somebody or other is the, you know, whatever. They're trying to put everybody in these opposite roles on purpose and everything like that. Pretty soon you'd be ashamed to be just a mother at home with her kids.
Exactly.
Because that's just not hip and cool. Is that
Right.
really okay? Can I be one of those? You know, I would have been, you know, that's all I ever wanted was to be a mommy and an artist. But I when I guess I was just so blessed. You know, sometimes they say that the worst thing that ever happened to you sometimes ends up being the best thing that ever happened to you. Because my husband at the time, he had gotten laid off of his job, and he said, "You've got to go to work." And I was going, "No, I want to take care of the kids." But if he had to, you know, crack the whip and force me to go out and to get a job, I never would have ended up in animation. And then because I worked in 20 years, I get to live at MPTF, and I love it. And so it was slaving away, supposedly, at a job that I loved, animation, even though I didn't think I wanted it at first. You know, all I wanted was to be a mom, you know, but I knew the only other thing I knew how to do was draw. So I got to do that too. but really I wanted to be a mommy. That's all I really wanted to just nurture those kids, you know.
Yeah,
So I'm thankful that I got the best of both worlds, you know, odd sort of
absolutely.
accidentally. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me, having to be forced to go to work, even if I didn't.
It's
And then
what Bob Ross would call a happy accident.
It's a happy accident.
There you go.
Good old Bob Ross. Yeah, he's wonderful. Huh?
Yeah.
So let's talk about technology and how it is advanced. I mean, we've gone from hand-drawn cartoons to digital, now AI. How has your role in animation changed with the advancement of technology? Ruth?
Well, for me, I joined the technology bandwagon early because I wanted to learn Flash animation. And I did. I learned it at home just by studying all the tutorials and things. And because I found out that I could make my own cartoons.
Yeah.
And so I did, you know, I followed that and started making my own cartoons at home. And then actually ended up being the 2D and digital Flash coordinator between the people who drew on paper and then the people that did it in the computer, because I knew both. And I worked at Cornerstone Animation, and that was really fun, and it was a great further education because I thought I knew a lot about Flash, but then they showed me even more, so I got more under my belt. But so that was wonderful. And then I took a few classes in 3D animation, but I didn't end up continuing and working actually in 3D, even though I loved it, because my first husband became ill, and then it ended up that I ended up getting to the point where I needed to retire. And so when he got sick the same time I retired, and so it ended up that I stopped my career of working for other people. However, I started my nonprofit that he and I started together so that we could go into the schools and bring art back into the school. Like one of you mentioned that they'd taken out a lot of art out of the schools, right? And so like one day my son came home from school and he said, "Mom, the reason why I went to school wasn't there today." I said, "What? What was that?" He said, "They took art class away." And I was just so angry that they would do that, that I started volunteering at the school. And that was before we started the nonprofit. And then eventually I thought, well, if I have a nonprofit, then I can go to any school and I can give them what we do, you know, for free. And I started doing all these free art presentations and then making my own cartoons. So now that's what we're doing. And I have private art students right now that are working on our film together that we're working on. And Danny Bowman and I she's helping working with it as well. And we premiered the last one at Comic-Con in 2016, and we're going to premiere our second one, which is a second episode of the first story. And we're going to premiere that at this next Comic-Con coming up in July.
Fantastic.
It's very exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
How long were the animations?
They're not very long. They were about like 4.5 minutes long.
Okay, that's still
Yeah.
a pretty long time.
How long were your cartoons?
I think it's 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yeah, see, you
Yeah.
can go on 2 minutes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Tristin, how has technology changed your career?
Well, we're in the middle of a shift right now, I think, with AI. I think a lot of the studio heads are just kind of holding off to see where they can take it, you know, how much money they can save, how fast they can do productions, you know. I mean, when I learned traditionally. I learned how to paint traditional backgrounds, and I got in like right at the end of it, you know, and so my first background job was actually digital, but then I got a chance to work on SpongeBob, and that was painted traditionally. So, you know, they're still doing it traditional. They kind of finish it up in the computer, but it's all started crescent board with, you know, paint and airbrush and everything. So that's super fun. But unless you're lucky enough to work on a you know, a show where they still want to paint traditionally, it's all digital, and it's becoming more of like a cross between 3D and 2D. Blender, you know, is being used a lot, which I'm learning, and I'm not big into 3D, like learning 3D. I like the, you know, just the immediacy of being able to paint, draw, get your textures and your colors, you know, and have it look the way you want without XYZ axis, you know. But and I've been having fun with Procreate Dreams. That's a pretty incredible program. You can do frame by frame or keyframe, or just record your movement, and I mean, so it's and then you can export all the layers to Photoshop too, and it's all only for like $19.99 for the program. So it's pretty cool how technology has changed from Photoshop being like hundreds of dollars to, you know, but I think with AI, I'm a little worried about where that might be taking us, because I see people who like were never artists before, and now all of a sudden they've got these websites and look what I can do and buy my art, and it's like,
Right.
But you can tell that it's AI.
Oh yeah.
And there's just, if you can type words into a computer and it just generates a picture, to me, that's not art.
No, and it's, you know, it's taking art off of the internet, which somebody created.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, mishmashing it together, and but yeah, it's I'm still a fan of 2D hand drawn. That's my favorite, you know, and just I like the full animation, you know, full poses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actual drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vernette, how has technology changed your career?
Well, I was at the point, you know, when was realizing that this is what we have to do. I started taking classes. The union had started giving classes, but it also started working conjunction with some of the colleges. Santa Monica College had developed started a whole film and, you know, department with, gosh, I learned Photoshop and sound editing and, you know, putting it all together and that sort of thing. And it was, you know, it was kind of a mixture of a lot of us that were in the industry already and a lot of students, you know, that sort of thing. And we kind of blew the kids away with, you know, things that came natural to us, you know, and they were, oh, how did you do that? You know, this kind of thing. And, but then it got, you know, we started working, the union was working with the LA City School, adult school, and the vocational school. And a lot of the teachers were people that were already in the industry. And, you know, we were taking, a lot of us that, you know, we worked together and were taking these classes together as well. And then it started to get to the point where, you know, Disney was going into these new technologies and that sort of thing. And of course, they had acquired Pixar then, and a lot of, you know, their technical people were kind of taking over and whatever. And so, I mean, I had taken courses at, you know, a lot of things at Santa Monica College, and I was taking the adult school thing. David and I were taking quite a few together. And it just got to the point where, you know, other people in the industry that we knew were saying, you know, it's not going to be there. You know, what what we are, what's in our hearts is not going to be there, you know, that sort of thing. So that's when I decided, well, you know, probably the right time to retire, you know, that kind of thing. And so, you know, because there was nothing else out there. No one else was really doing anything. You know, Disney was working on some things, but they were starting to use the new digital stuff and that sort of thing. And they had already had a crew, that sort of thing. And then, you know, just meeting outside kids. There were people that had been working in the gaming industry, you know, that were becoming disillusioned as well. A lot of these guys, especially guys, that they had been going to school to learn this technology and whatever like that, and then they would get a job in gaming, you know, at Electronic Arts or you know, some of these places, and when the more established people at those places found out that these new kids were learning new things, you know, new technologies as a part of it, they would have these kids, oh, well, show me how to do that, you know, okay, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then they would know how to do it, and then they'd lay these kids off, you know, and it's just at the point where, you know, these guys were, you know, they had gotten married, they were started to buy a house, or they were buying a car, you know, they were starting their families, and then they get dumped, you know, that sort of thing. And I knew that I had some security anyway with my pension and everything like that. So it was just, you know, admitting that's how it was going to be from now on, you know, that sort of thing. And just the industry that I love, still love, and you know, that sort of thing, wasn't going to be there, wasn't going to be the same anymore. Wasn't, you know, the people weren't going to be the same either, you know. And it you know, it was just depressing.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way now because
Yeah.
a lot of the people that mentored me and that I worked with are not there anymore, you know, just in the last couple of years since
Right.
Yeah, so it's different now. And they're sending so much work out of the country.
yeah.
And sorry, my dog he wants out. So if you hear him in the background.
I can't hear it. But
okay, good.
what do you think is if you can answer the question, Tristin, since you're the youngest one here, what do you think is the future for the kids who are coming up, as far as the ones that want to do animation?
Well, I think they need to follow their hearts, and they need to do what they love, because it's going to be, you know, something that they just want to do. You know, it can't be something that, like, it's not really a choice. I don't think it's kind of like you're either in 100% or, you know, but
right. Yeah. Because I think you're right. It's like one of the people here who's an actor and a poet. He said his advice to young people is if they shouldn't say, well, I'm trying to be an actor. He says, no, say, I am an actor.
Yeah, it's just something you have to do, right?
Yeah, whatever you really love, you got to pursue it. Just like, I think it was, it was Wendy who said that you got to follow your heart. So, I mean, that is absolutely true. Now I hear your dog.
I know,
You have to open the door for him. Can he go out there by himself?
No, I have to go downstairs. Sorry.
Wow.
He can wait 5 minutes.
Well, is there anything in your animation career that you really maybe wanted to do but you didn't get to do? Ruth, was there anything? Or are you quite satisfied with how it went?
I always wanted to make my own cartoons, but I am. The thing is that I'm doing it like you know, slowly but gradually. And so you know, I am doing it, but I mean, yeah, sure. I have, I'm writing a book of my memoirs, and it's full of funny cartoons of the things that the kids said, because, you know, I don't know if you remember, Tristin, did you ever write any funny things down that your kids said?
Oh, well, I mean that when you said that your kids learned butthead from Simpsons, I have like my son, I have them on video when he was like 3 years old. Yeah, butt face or something like that. And I was just like,
Oh no.
it was cute at the time, but he was kind of snotty too. So I don't know.
Well,
But-
that you know, they say that like little kids, once they get to be around 7 years old, they stop saying such funny things. But before that time, like they're trying to figure out the world, and they say things that are really funny. So, but in any case, that the book has a bunch of those funny things in it that they said, plus my own experiences trying to raise 7 kids, and you know, struggling as a mom and having to work and all this and that. So it's an interesting memoir, you know, of self-discovery.
Oh, I'd love to read it. Let me know when it's
Yes,
out.
I'd love to finish it. I've got to finish it by March, the middle of March, because there's something I have to submit it for.
Yeah.
But so my book is called Baby in the Bathwater.
It's great.
love
We're
it.
looking
About
forward
the
to that.
funny things that kids say. And one of my memories on Facebook for Valentine's Day was I used to make chocolate candy and lollipops. And in my memory, I wrote some conversation that my son and I had. And it was something like he asked me to make him a white chocolate lollipop, rose lollipop for his Valentine. And I asked him who his Valentine was. And he said, my mouth is my Valentine. And,
That's great.
and he had to have been like 5 or 6 years old at the time. So. But yes, like kids say the funniest things when they're little. And yeah.
Because they're trying to figure out the world, and then by the time all their like brain hasn't gotten to the point where they understand how everything really works in this world. So it's like they're trying to figure it out. Like my son was watching Ray Charles on TV one day, and Ray Charles was performing for a big auditorium, and so my son said, why is he wearing sunglasses? I said, oh, that's because he's blind. And he says, oh, now can he see? He thought that the sunglasses were somehow this magical thing that could allow him to now see. Because they don't know yet, you know. And then once they get to be like 7 or 8, they're not funny anymore, because now they understand how everything works.
Right.
Yeah, like when you see an airplane up in the sky and they realize there's people in there, but how did they get into that small little airplane?
Isn't that wonderful?
Oh gosh. So how about you, Tristin? Anything that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Gosh, I have been so blessed to work on just about everything I've ever dreamed of working on. I have had some uncredited art director work that I've done, and I'd like to someday get credit for art directing. So maybe like an art directing job sometime would be good. But other than that, like I'm just working on personal projects and seeing where those go. Yeah, it's rewarding in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. How about you, Vernette?
Well, I don't know. I've done what I love in the industry. I've loved, that part, and that, we would get, everybody knows that, you go through seasonal things and you get laid off for a couple of months or whatever. And I got into working with catering. And, I got hooked up with a couple of caterers, major characters that did a lot of Hollywood premieres and things like that, and parties and celebrity homes and things like that. That was a lot of fun. And, I started, well, I always liked to cook. and that sort of thing. So I had a lot of fun doing that when I would get laid up. And then, like just, the advice of doing what you want to do something you want to do, that sort of thing. And another thing when I was a child that I always liked to do was dance. And, my mom put me in dance school, and I had a lot of fun performing and whatever. And so then that went off. I danced all through high school and whatever. And, but in between that time, especially like that slow period where we'd be off for, maybe 3-4 months sometimes, in between jobs and whatever, I started doing theater. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that, and just the people and the art again. And I had a good instructor, and a good group of people that I enjoyed being with, and that were all very different, all different characters and crazy and that sort of thing that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I have a lot to look back on that I enjoyed. I enjoyed. Yeah.
Great. And Shaggy and Scooby would have loved the catering gig. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I had some incredible experiences in that too. Just some of the celebrity you run into or you help, and that sort of thing, and it is pretty amazing. Presidents,
Wow.
that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
that's really cool. So you've all had amazing careers in animation. Do you have any advice for women that are looking to get into the industry? Ruth?
I would say just keep learning everything you can, and don't be afraid to ask and knock on doors everywhere in the industry, because believe it or not, I mean, there's always, if you have a talent, no matter, even if you get like 10 no's and then you finally get a yes, there's people out there that will need you. And so like, it's kind of like you have to turn over a lot of stones before you find a worm. So you don't give up. And that was the thing I had to learn. I was so shy when I first started. I had this list of about 30 different studios, and my husband would say like, well, have you called them all? I called them. And I was like so scared to cold call people I didn't know and say, hi, I know how to do this. Do you need any work? I was so scared. I was so afraid that they'd have to say no, or nobody needed me or something. But I had to learn to barrel through, because what ends up happening is when they're saying, gosh, we need somebody who can blah, blah, blah. They don't want to have to look for them. But if you're calling, and you're calling regularly, and you're finding out who needs help, when they need you, you'll be the one, because you're right there asking right when they need you.
Yeah.
So you have to not be afraid of other people. That's what I had to overcome. Now I'm not afraid of anybody, but so it takes boldness to be able to be, courageous enough to cold call and just keep at it. It's just so painful. But unless you're naturally that way, but
Tristin, how about you? Any advice?
Well, my advice is leave the industry better than you found it. So us women, we've worked really hard to build it to where it is today. We've had respect for the properties, for the characters, and for the original intent, the original concept of the shows, and we put our heart into it. And so I would just say just to try to leave it better than you found it, yeah.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Vernette, any advice?
Well, yeah, the same thing. It's like she said, it's that's where my heart is. I loved every aspect of what I worked on, and the people and the art and whatever, and it's you come to the realization now that you can't go back. It's not really there to go back to, but the talent and whatever, and the belief in yourself, and the caring that you have can still go somewhere, like, and that do it for yourself kind of thing, and then that inspiration will happen. It'll inspire someone else to do something. And like I said, so many of my friends, after that it set in that those Cinderella and the and the Seven Dwarfs and all this is not going to come back. That's not going to happen anymore. And until people get tired of the mishmash that it is now, some of the characters just absolutely ridiculous, just ridiculous characters. There's no soul, no heart, no personality to any of them, and they're just a lot of this AI, all these blobby type characters, that kind of thing. It's going to get old at some point. That's all I can imagine. It's going to get old, and somebody's going to miss it enough to want to bring some part of it back, that sort of thing. And maybe I'll be around, maybe I won't, but there will be somebody who will be inspired by it, I think, that sort of thing. And people young enough to remember, they're old enough to remember, but young enough to be able to have experienced those like the Little Mermaid and the Lion King and all of those, that sort of thing, and wish that they had them back. I think it was just it was so kind of heartbreaking to watch Disney go back and try and make a live action Jungle Book and a live action Lion King, and
can't improve upon perfection.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was just insane. It didn't have to be. It didn't have to be, and it just I don't know, that when they decided that they were going to market these, what did they think they were going to get out of it? What, by making them, and then still, digitizing some of the animals and things like that. It was just, it was really disheartening to see some of those things. And, I still, in my heart, believe that at some point somebody's going to do something, maybe not sooner, but later, to make something that's going to inspire, a generation, that sort of thing. Like we were, when we were kids, what we grew up with, that kind of thing grew in our hearts,
We're long overdue. Yeah, we're due for something good like that.
Yeah.
With the internet and everyone having a voice, I guess, I'm hoping that somebody's going to create their own production company and they're just going to come out with something amazing. And because of the internet, everyone can see it. And I just hope that happens. Just like when, if AI really does get used in the big studios like Warner Brothers, and I hope that people will create their own production companies to carry on the hand-drawn and even digital animation, so that we still get real art. And I just
Exactly.
and that people will still have jobs, because that's another thing. You implement AI, and now who's going to be doing the work? No one's going to be able to find work, and then what?
Well, you're going to have six 6 weeks of work instead of 6 months
Right.
of work.
Yeah,
Maybe,
exactly.
maybe, because now,
Maybe.
like
Maybe.
they'll need less people because
Mhm.
they're really the computer's doing the work. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
scary to think about, and I don't like it.
Right.
And soulless.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing that, if I may add one thing to kind of go back to women who have inspired me. One person that I really look up to and I'm so proud that exists in the world is June Falkenstein. If you don't know her, she's an amazing animator, artist. She's worked on everything from the Jungle Book, Lion King, and Tigger movie, Once Upon a Christmas. And now, see, she's the executive producer and supervising director of a show called Stillwater, which is a wonderful, beautiful thing that is a story that is elevating and has like higher mind thoughts that they're bringing in these lovely images and cartoons that the kids will be inspired by. And so there are still good people who are working in the industry, and and a lot of it just boils down to story. What are you trying to say? And I think that, like you guys said, people are going to get tired of the muck and the mire and the sludge that's coming out of the machinery of people who are just trying to make money. Oh, let's see what sells. And then they'll say, yeah, kids want to hear, crazy stuff and, that gives them ADHD, and stuff like that. And so, but they're getting smarter slowly but gradually, right? And another person who's like one of these visionaries that can look in the future and stuff, and we were having a conversation about AI and like what's next for humanity. And she was saying, this is Elizabeth Peru, she said that when since all AI can do is imitate, take from what other people have done and conglomerate into something else, then what our job is as individual souls who aren't in that mix, if we're putting out something that's really good, that's going to uplift humanity and mankind, then that will get picked up by the AI as well. So why not just be the best version of yourself, like you all said, that you can be? And then when AI picks it up, slowly it'll lift everything else up. So basically it all boils down to, you have to be the change that you want to see in the world,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, life goes on. Probably when they invented the automobile, and all the people who are going to lose their jobs in, because they had horses, they probably were going nuts thinking the world's falling apart. But I'm sure that it's all moving towards, we're all going to become smarter. And people will start to remember, to keep the emphasis on the right syllable.
Right.
We have one final question, and we like to end on a positive note. Do you have any fun stories that you can share from your career or kids, whatever fun story you want to share? Ruth?
Well, I have one funny story. One of the times when I was bringing my son to work with me, the other son, not the Superman under, but my other son, who was about, I guess he was about 4 years old. And he's a sweet boy. He's very, very, very thoughtful. So we were walking down the halls with my pile of work, and Tex Avery comes down the hall towards us. And I go, oh, hi, Tex. Hey, this is my son, John. I want to introduce you. Now, Tex has one eye that looks like this, it's all like, I guess it's this eye. Anyway, it's like, because he's blind in one eye. So John says, what happened to your eye? First thing out of his mouth, and I'm going, oh God, why did he have to ask that? But Tex was so sweet. He stopped everything. He says, well, honey, this is what happened. And he told the story that he was walking down the hall and he was going to go into one of the office doors. And somebody inside the office had the bright idea of putting a pin at the end of a paper airplane and threw it just as he walked into the room, poked him in the eye and ruined his.
Is that what happened?
That's
Oh my goodness.
And so after that, and you know, it was the amazing thing about Tex. He never sued the guy. He never did anything. He just went on with one eye. And he was the guy that invented like the take, you know, where the people go, boy, eyeballs pop out, jaw drops to the floor, you know.
Oh yeah.
He invented that. So, but he told it to my son in a very nice way. And then he said, so be very careful. Never put anything sharp in front of a paper airplane. And my son's going, oh my God. So that was my funny story.
Tristin, any fun stories to share?
Well, fun story. I just talked to Jerry Eisenberg yesterday.
Oh,
He called me out of the blue. Yeah, and
how's he doing? Good.
he's doing good.
I knew he was having
he
some
wants to
physical
get together for lunch.
Oh, cool. Cool.
So there's a producer that we both worked with, Joe Sitka. I think he likes him a lot because his name's Joe. You know, so he likes Joe Barbera. Joe, hey, bring Joe. Okay, bring Joe. So he wants to get together with Joe and I for lunch, and he calls us the Three Amigos because we met at like Ernie's in was it Burbank, and Jerry and I were there early, and we were waiting for our friend Joe, and our friend Joe walks in through the doors, and he makes this grand entrance, you know, and he didn't get it on tape, so this time he wants to like actually get. I don't know. He's funny. But I'm getting ready to go to Baja, Mexico this weekend. I'm leaving on Saturday to go on a whale watch study trip with some biologists. Yeah, and we're gonna like study, I think tag baby sea turtles and swim with sea lions. And it's my first time to Baja, and I was telling Jerry this, and he goes, "Oh, that reminds me of a time when I went to Baja, because you know, when like I guess the 6 months on, 6 months off, like those breaks, people go to Mexico." And he went with like Ruby and Spears and their wives and Ewo. It was like a group, and they all went down to like La Paz. It was like 20 miles north of La Paz, and they had a wonderful time. And he was telling me about his Baja experience. And so I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll have more stories to tell when I get back.
That's really
And hopefully get inspired to do some artwork that'll, you know, help save whales, you know, save the oceans somehow.
Absolutely.
My son is going to school for biology, and he is focusing on marine biology. So right now he's trying to figure out if he's going to grad school or if he's going to get a job, and he's telling me about jobs he wants to apply for. And
wow, that's amazing.
So, yeah,
it's a good time for it, you know. The ocean needs it.
Yeah, he would love that trip that you're going on.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it is.
Yeah, definitely. He's hoping to go to Costa Rica again over the summer. He went last summer. Fantastic. And they did all this research there. So.
That's another place I'd like to go, is Costa Rica someday.
Yeah. Bug spray. He said there's lots
bug
of
spray.
And the monkeys really do throw things at you.
Bug spray.
Okay.
Oh, bugs. Big ones. I'm a nature girl, but I don't like bugs.
Yeah.
Vernette, do you have any fun stories to share?
Yeah. Well, so many. I mean, so many. But one, it's kind of in my family, it's kind of been my claim to fame. But anyway, again, it was very early on when I first started at Hanna-Barbera, and I was in inking. I was in the inking room, and at that time, Hanna-Barbera had a record company. They did, a lot of, kids records, but they also did some other classical things and whatever. But it was in 1965, and I had, I was like 18, 19, and the Beatles were coming to town. The Beatles were going to have that big concert at Dodger Stadium. And I guess what they had done was gave out tickets to record companies, promotional type things. And the record company had got a bunch of tickets. And I guess the Beatles were not that famous yet in the United States. I'm not sure if they had been on Ed Sullivan or not yet. But, this was and for me, and, at 18, the Beatles were just, it. And so this, and we didn't have these full walls. It was, they had, like this partition thing. And one of the guys from the record company, which was right next to us, next door, comes over, and he's leaning over the barrier there, and he goes, "Anybody want to go to the Beatles concert at Dodger Stadium?" And nobody up but me. I was the only one. And so so okay. And he gave me a handful of tickets, and there was like, I took my two sisters. Yeah, it was just three of us. And I think I gave some to a couple of but none of the older women. They were say the Beatles or that kind of thing. And I think there was just me and one other girl that was young enough to know who the Beatles were. What a big deal this was, this kind of thing. And so my sisters and I go, and the tickets are right in the VIP section of the Dodger Stadium.
Wow.
And the thing was that the stage was right there in center field, right in on the field. And a helicopter came down in the outfield and landed in the outfield, and the Beatles came running out. They came running out of the helicopter and onto the stage and picked up, and then started, and then, mayhem broke out, this kind of thing. And it was just, we were breathtaking, it was like, so excited, you can't scream.
Yeah.
And everybody else kind of around us was like, kind of thing. And so, this was the claim to fame. And now we get, every time we're big concert goers anyway. But every time the Beatles were in town, we were there. We actually got to go to the one when they were at the Hollywood Bowl, which was a big deal too. And my sister and I were just, we were breathtaking, this kind of thing, that we're here, we're actually doing this, and the tickets were like $12 at that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was probably like $150 or whatever. But, I was working, I could get these tickets.
Well, get the good seat.
Yeah. And then, we just went to the, I think it was last year or the year before, Paul McCartney was at SoFi, and my one sister, my cousin, and my brother and I and my daughter went to the concert. And my brother was all, he's sitting next to the, he was kind of at the end and he was sitting next to these two guys and he's telling them all, my sister was able to go to the Dodger Stadium when they first came in. This guy, and he's going like, Vernette, come here, tell these guys.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, so that was, and I mean, that will be etched in my memory till the day I die. Yeah, and that was so much fun,
It's a good
and
one.
that never would have happened if I wasn't in ink and paint that day.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, amazing.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Well, Tristin, I was going to ask you, or if you know Willie Ito.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because they had a big party over at his house. I guess it was in, oh gosh, a few months ago.
Oh,
And,
really?
I just got a message from him this morning that but he and Jerry and we're all, they're all close.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Jerry's really close with them. I've met him through Jerry a couple times.
Yeah, because Willie is just an amazing person, and he worked on Hong Kong Phooey and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're making a book. Jerry just came out with a book, and I think Willie's getting a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, Willie's getting a
Jerry's
book.
book is great. 320 pages. It's just
Oh yeah, he wants a volume 2. He said.
that surprised me.
Got more stuff.
Well, like us, we could go on forever and keep talking about everything, and just, oh, now I remember this thing.
Yeah.
I think you all need books because then we can read about all of your great stories because you guys do have great stories.
Aw.
Yeah, I think all of you need to
Thank
write a
you.
book or have someone write a book about you, whatever is easiest. Or
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'd be great.
There's certainly enough material for future episodes of
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing. You all
Wonderful.
have had such great careers. We love all the work that you've done. We love that you loved what you did or are doing. And it's just incredible to be able to talk to all of you and for you all to be together because you all either know each other or have people in common, and just to hear your stories and you're feeding off of each other, and it's just so much fun. You guys are fun.
Yeah, it
Well,
was
it was
great.
a real
I really
pleasure
enjoyed
meeting you guys.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
enjoyed this so much.
No, you're all very inspiring, and you three, I think you exemplify the type of women that we should be talking about and celebrating for International Women's Day every year. So everyone who's watching, if there is a woman in your life that has made a difference to you, that you love, that inspires you, that you aspire to be like, tell them that you love them, celebrate them. Talk about the women that made a difference in your life. I mean, there's so many people who, like you guys, you're never going to get to meet all of the people whose lives you've touched, and they're not going to get to meet you. But as long as your work lives on, so will you, and you are all absolutely worth celebrating. And we thank you for not only your time here, but everything that you have loved doing, that you've put your passion into, because that's what makes the end product so wonderful, and why even 50 years later with Scooby, we're still talking about it, because it's amazing. But it's only amazing because of the people like you who helped bring him to life, because everyone that loves what they do puts a little bit of their soul into their projects.
Yeah.
And so Scooby will live on, and you guys will live on through him and everything that you've worked on. And we love you so much. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us, because this has been like such a highlight of my whole life.
Thank
Being
you,
in a
Wendy.
room
Thank
with
you,
other
Nikki.
artists.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And just thank you
you.
guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So much, Wendy, and thank you to Nikki and Vernette and Tristin. My gosh, such a pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having this.
Thank you for, yeah. for
Putting this
putting this
together.
together. Thank you
Yeah.
for putting it together. It's a great time.
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
Good night,
I'll move
girls.
now.
Bye.
Thanks, guys, for everything. Take care.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Tagus, and Elizabeth Maloney. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to animation artist Ruth Elliott-Hilsdon, animation painter Vernette Griffee, background painter Tristin Cole, and artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby panel.